All right, we are live. Hope everything sounds good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Now You Know Eagle Pass. I am your host, Ruben Camarillo, and I am with my special guest, Texas Representative House District 74, Mr. Eddie Morales. Eddie, welcome. Thank you for coming on the show. Guys, hit my music. All right. Let that finish out. Okay, we have a special edition of this podcast. Woo, man, it is. Got to get those nerves out, man.
I know.
It's great. You know what I mean? And thank you so much for letting us come into your lovely home. This is great. I mean, I wanted to ask, like, whenever you're in legislative session, like, can we live here?
You know, it's empty. Maybe for a small fee of you taking care of it, we can. We'll give a discount for veterans too.
Hey, awesome. Oh, that's great. That's great, guys. We have an excellent, awesome show for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about legislature, and of course, we're going to talk about Representative Morales here. Like, kind of step into the shoes of a state representative, and we're going to talk about his achievements, talk about his endorsements, and of course, we got a little bowl here. This is called the Controversy Bowl. We're going to talk about nomoremorales.com, which is a site, kind of like a propaganda site that's been made by his opponent. And we're going to give him a chance to kind of explain everything that, not too much that's on there, but give him a chance to go southpaw and counter. You know what I mean? We're going to have some fun, man. We're going to break the ice. And how's the block walking been?
You know, it's been great. We ended up with two different pairs of pants. Of shoes that we were able to get.
Well, I would have to change my pants too, man.
It's been crazy, but it's been exciting. Part of it is you got to run every 2 years. One of the years, the state of Texas is one of those few states that is not a full-time legislative body. We're only a part-time legislative body. Technically, right. We should be. And so 1 year we end up spending, the odd-numbered years we end up spending in a legislative session. It should only be for 6 months. But the two sessions that I've served under, and I've humbly served for House District 74, we've had special sessions after that the governor calls, and only the governor can call, and they're good for 30 days. So the first time, I think we had 3 special sessions. Mm-hmm. This last legislative session, we had 4 special sessions. So we have now on record for being the longest serving legislative body with the regular session and the 4 special sessions that we had. And then once we're done with that, then we have to end up, in the largest district, not only in Texas, but in the United States. Oh, wow. I wear that with a badge of honor because it is so beautiful. If you go out there in West Texas and you visit all these unique places that are part of the district. And so it's great to have those one-on-ones on a continuous basis. Yeah. It is very, very hard work. And that's why you end up with needing 2 pairs of brand new shoes so you can end up doing all that block walk
or pants. You know what I mean? Like, shoot, how do you balance? You're an attorney, you own your own business, you have Taco Morales, you have the Torteria, you have Langley and Benac. How do you balance all that, man? That's crazy.
Well,
and you got to have time for Helen too.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's the most important, right? Yeah. Because otherwise then I'm in the doghouse, and probably without pants and without shoes also, if you think about it. So she's the one that makes a lot of the purchases or approves a lot of the purchases. Cause I'll usually like, hey babe, on the shoes, we were at different places in San Antonio. It's like, what, do you like them? They ended up with 2 pairs of shoes for me that are very comfortable. And she's like, once for the campaign and once you use them for a campaign, and after you use them just to go in there, you can use them also for the campaign. Right. I want to clear up the Morales Tacos are my uncle's business. Okay. But we're very proud of them, obviously, for the number of years that they've also been here in the community. So I do have the Piedras Negras Tortilla Factory that's fully owned by myself and my wife. We're very proud of that. It's now in its 36 years.
Wow.
My parents started it, and it was already there. We bought it from Mr. Cardenas. And so just think of how old that building and all its rich history. We have since expanded through the years. My dad and mom did a phenomenal job. And then I think hopefully we can carry on that legacy. I was there. We started when they started. I was 12 years old, and so I've been working there. My kids, as they grew up, also they had to go through the hard knocks of the Piedras Negras Tortilla Factory, and really enjoyed it.
It's hard to be a business owner, man, and obviously, especially when you got to manage it, especially when you have other duties that you got to especially when you're running around all of District 74. It covers Del Rio, El Paso, right?
All the way from, so it starts here in Eagle Pass in South Central Texas, and now it goes into El Paso, which is the fastest growing segment of El Paso, which is considered the Far East. So you touch with base with New Mexico. You've got the Bliss base, also that it's a lot of empty part of the Bliss base that I represent, and then that highway kind of divides the other districts, and then I end up all the way to Culberson. So I represent 11 counties. I used to represent 12 before the redistricting in 2020. So now I represent 11 counties, but we went to 202,000 people in those 11 counties that we represent.
Okay. Well, I can't even imagine, man. That sounds like so much work.
It's a lot of work, I will say. And, but it's gratifying whenever you pass a piece of legislation or you're able to help a constituent that was having an issue with one of the state agencies, and we're able to assist them and get the whatever it was that they needed, processed. It just gives you that energy to be able to keep moving forward. And I was one of those, just like I'm sure that many of your listeners, that would always, wonder or sometimes complain, like, why are the resources not coming to our communities? Why is the funding not coming here? Why are we not being paid attention? And so then when the opportunity came up, it was my mother basically that convinced me and said, if you think somebody else can do this job better than you, and what God has put forth in front of you, and through education and experiences and, working at a young age and understanding how to run a small business, and going to the university, going to law school, representing governmental entities, working with municipal governments, working with city council members, working with commissioners, working at the state level. If you think somebody else can do that job, then go ahead and let them do it. But if you think that you're the guy, and I'm like, I think I'm the guy, and I feel that I would do a well job. And hopefully, all your viewers can see that since 2020, when we were elected into office, we've tried to be a voice for all, even those that don't vote for me. I know that they should continue to have a voice, and I will continue. My team and I know that regardless of party affiliation, whether you're an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat, we are there for you to serve you in the district, and that you can come to us. Even if you didn't vote for us, I'm one of those that it's like, I may not have gotten your vote, but hopefully you will see through our experiences and through the work that we're going to put in, and doing what's best for you and listening to you, that we will hopefully end up, winning that vote and changing that person's mind when it comes to who we are, what we represent. And I think that it goes past just the party label. I really do think that individuals should really study and vote on who the best candidate is, and not just whether they have an I for independent, an R for Republican, or a D for Democrat.
Like, when do you get to take a break and just be Eddie? You know what I mean? Like, I try to, that's what I try to do, especially when I'm on a podcast. I try to kind of let loose a little bit. Like, I can ask a question like, what do you think of Trump working at McDonald's?
Well, I mean, it's, if you want to call it, I really would like for him to come and work at the tortilla factory on a Sunday.
There you go.
And see what a true middle-class small business, our 15 workers are going through. Not have a closed McDonald's that is staged and set up. No, really set it up with all the number of customers that we have, and we love our customers, and just the lines that form there, so that he would actually see what middle-class small business go through, and how hard it is, and the hard work that our employees, we would not be where we are if it were not for our employees. Customers are very important, but at the same time, the employees need to be there and put the best face forward, so that the customers can continue to return. We can continue to have that return business.
I was watching that and I thought it was hilarious, because everybody knows that I'm a Trump supporter, but there's this kid there, I guess, teaching him how to do the fries, and he said that he'd been there for 8 years. But I'm starting to think all right, you know what? I think they got rid of the regular workers and they put some corporate guys in there to make sure that they don't screw it up. You know what I mean? Can you imagine Governor Abbott coming and working for McDonald's? That'd be chaotic. You know what I mean? You have protests out front and everything, and our Democratic chair running around with sage, the devil on wheels. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think more importantly, and I truly respect, I have, as you know, in Maverick, the people that truly know me, we've lived all our life here, except for those years that I was out there, getting my degrees at the University of Texas and at St. Mary's Law School. I truly feel that individually, regardless of how you feel, you have your own personal reason as to why you're supporting an individual. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like you need to take into account, other people's perspectives. I mean, I have a lot of crossover vote here. For example, Biden won this county by 51.6% or something like that. I got 70% of the vote in Maverick. Wow. And I think even Austin talks about that, and the lobbyists and the movers and shakers up there in Austin, because they recognize it's like, what is this guy doing differently that's getting the message across? And I think it's just being truly open, honest, and understanding to the people, listening to them also, and so that they can see, and hopefully we can continue to get that crossover vote. I'm really looking forward to hopefully people recognizing that regardless of where you are and how I voted historically, you can go through all our voting record, that it's about doing the right thing. And sometimes I even get in trouble with my own party, right, for not following what they were, proposing. Yeah. But it's about doing the right thing and representing your community and your district and voting your district.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's why I'm doing this podcast. I'm an open-minded conservative. I think it's fair that I listen to the other side as well. I could sit here and argue about our moral beliefs and stuff, and I'm not going to change anybody's mind. You know what I mean? And the other person's not going to change my mind. So I want to bring a media platform to Maverick County and to not making this about me, but like just a quick little brief. Like I want to give everybody a platform to talk, whether it's Democrats, whether it's Republicans, whether it's Green Party. Who cares? You know what I mean?
I love that. Yeah. And I think we need to have more of those open discussions. There was once a time when people just like you and me, everybody knows, and I haven't been quiet about it. I'm voting for the Harris-Walz ticket because I truly believe that they represent the best of what Americans can be and the future that I envision and that I would want to hope that they best represent that for not only myself, but my kids as well as they're growing up now and they're young adults. But I totally understand. We are getting to the point at times, and because I think social media and all this rhetoric, they just want these culture wars. They just want us at odds and just like at each other's throats. Yeah. There used to be a time when we could have these sorts of discussions, shake hands at the end of the day, and be still friends, be still neighbors, and not have this rhetoric and instead of de-escalating issues, it just seems that it's just getting more and more. But I think that we still live in the best country that obviously it's not perfect and there's a lot of room for improvement, but we can be that vision, and working together rather than on the things that divide us, we should focus on the things that unite us and move forward on those so that we can really put our best foot forward at the local level, at the state level, and, as a whole for the nation.
Yeah. I mean, I love debating, you know what I mean? And like, you'll see everybody sees Helen and I go at it all the time, but we get along just fine. We're still, she was able to set this up, thank you, Helen, for, getting in touch with me and setting this up. And of course, thanks to my production team that's over here working hard and helping us out to get this going. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are liberals and Democrats, and we're gonna argue and debate stuff, but then we're still eating at the same tables. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's something that Maverick County and Eagle Pass really needs to work on, is still coming together. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are, still eat at the same table. Yeah, I have a couple of arguments, but you know what? Don't take it personal. You know what I mean? Yeah. It is what it is. And so that's why we're here today, and we're interviewing the state rep, and we're going to have some fun. So,
and I want to say, I appreciate, I've seen some of the Discord. As you can tell, I'm super, super busy, right? With different businesses. But sometimes I'll see here and there, and I'm like, hey, why are you giving Ruben such a hard time? Or, but I always enjoy the fact that you maintain a level of professionalism, and so does she, and that discourse. And I think that that's more than anything. If you all take anything else from this, if you remember anything, it's about making sure at the end of the day, there's still unity. There's still an openness for us to communicate. We may not agree on all on all things, but if we can focus on those 6 or 7 things out of the 10 that actually can unite us, let's focus on those things, and let's forget about the things that actually divide us.
Absolutely.
I wanted to also take the time. I mentioned a little bit about the veterans, but I want to thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I have a number of veterans that are my friends. They also sometimes we go at it, and because they tend to be more conservative.
Right.
But I was served on the Veterans Committee my first legislative session, so it was impressive to see at the state level what we do for veterans and how much more also of the services that we need to continue to provide. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it.
And again, thank you for your professionalism and your discourse on social media.
Absolutely. Like I said, I told Helen, like, dude, we should start arguing more often. It hasn't happened in a long time. It's going to get more it's going to get more publicity. You know what I mean?
People are going to think we're friends now.
We got to get it back into character. So, all righty. So let's delve into it, man. And, so we'll talk about your achievements here. Let's give a shout out to your endorsements. Yeah. Why don't you mention that for us?
Oh my God. There's some, so first for those viewers, if you go to any of our handles on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you can search us under Morales for Texas, or you can go to our website, moralesfortexas.com. You will see a lot of social media graphic work there where we are super proud of the endorsements that we've received. I'm talking, Texoga, the Texas oil and gas industry. For a Democrat to be endorsed, I think it shows also a lot for West Texas, especially since it's so conservative. I'm the vice chair of energy resources. I believe in renewable energy sources. Geothermal energy is a new and up and coming thing. And it is amazing when you see the geothermal maps. There's places in Maverick and Valverde and out there in West Texas that if we were to, double down on that investment, it's going to reap substantial rewards. But still, we are dominant in the oil and gas industry, and I'm a strong supporter of it. We can't change it overnight. Otherwise, how are we going to build roads? How are we going to have our infrastructure throughout Texas? How are we going to fund our schools? There's so much money that comes from like Reeves County that I represent out there. They actually send like over $1 billion to Austin that then everybody else uses for their communities. Just think about that, and think about Reeves County and how they feel like, man, we raise all these funds and then have to send it over to Austin. So obviously we need to address some of the tax and how there's still needs, for example, in these communities where they have real huge oil and gas production. But at the same time, I think that it's important for us to understand until we find something that really addresses and is cost effective also, we are going to continue to be dominant in Texas in the oil and gas industry. And I hope you understand that just because you're pro one thing, it doesn't mean that you're anti, renewable energy sources. Right. And you can actually support both. And that is what I'm doing. So I'm very proud of Texoga. We have all of the Texas teachers sort of associations, from TSTA, Texas State Teachers Association, TCTA, Texas Classroom Teachers Association, Texas AFT, the American Federation of Teachers. You say it, and they're very supportive of us. And we really appreciate that, because it actually means that it's actual teachers, the real people, that are endorsing us. We're talking social workers, Texas AFL-CIO, which is a labor union. I think that represents over 240,000 Texans. We're talking electricians, plumbers, pilots, engineers, and all sorts. You can go to Texas AFL-CIO and see, how many folks are members of Texas AFL-CIO. We have the sheriffs. We have 8 of the 11, every county I have representing 11 counties. So every county has a sheriff, right? I am endorsed by 8 out of the 11 sheriffs in our district.
That's pretty impressive.
I'm super, proud of that, and the fact that we've been able to work hand in hand, and that I'm always hopefully there, and that they have felt that I'm there for them. We passed Operation Lone Star. The last 2 legislative sessions, we appropriate approximately $5 billion each legislative session for the needs at the local level. I'm endorsed by the local Texas police officers. The Eagle Pass Police Officers Association, the local firefighters association as well, and at the state level. And so we're extremely proud of that, because I've seen the hard work that they put in. Remember, I was city attorney for 20 years. I worked regularly with the police officers. And I know that at the end of the day, with my brother-in-law being a border patrol, just recently retired, having so many friends in border patrol and also troopers, I know at the end of the day, they just want to do a good, effective job and return to their homes safe and sound. And I know, being on the, with my sister and my nieces, being there and worried when Norm was out on patrol, that you'd also want them to focus on it. So, having that, TMPA, Texas Municipal Police Association, CLEAT, Combined Law Enforcement Associations of Texas, the two largest police associations in the state of Texas, have also endorsed this. As a Democrat, again, I think it shows, especially since you're so in tune with conservative values. And for people that know, I'm a moderate conservative Democrat, and I got to vote in my district. And I've voted Republican in the past. And so I totally understand. I work, and I've told people from day one when I started running, if you're going to be that person that gets upset because you're going to see me working with the governor or working with Republicans on the House floor to pass legislation, and that's going to upset you, then I'm not your candidate, because I know that I need to do that in order to pass any legislation. Right. We have 115 members on the Texas House. We need 76 votes to pass any sort of legislation. There's 86 Republicans and 64 Democrats. For any piece of legislation, I was going to need some Republicans to come and support my legislation, even if I had all 64 and could convince all 64 of my Democrat friends.
I just think that people don't have that mindset, like especially when you have like websites like, nomoremorales.com, like they really don't have that mindset. Like as a public servant and as someone that works in legislation up in Austin, you got to work with Republicans too, and Republicans got to work with Democrats. It can't be too far right and too far left. And that's kind of like a sense of balance you have up in, for legislation up in the House and the Senate, even at the presidency level, you got to have some kind of sense of balance. And I strongly believe in that as a conservative. And, I've seen your work and I've seen how we keep an eye on you, you know what I mean? And it's good stuff.
And I think that these sorts of podcasts will help educate also a lot of the masses, right, to understand that our state system and our federal system is made up exactly that way, for there to be consensus, for there to be negotiation, for there, not completely one side or the other. And what I see a lot, especially after this last legislative session, 20 of my Republican colleagues were challenged by the governor on one issue, which was the private vouchers. Right. And it cost 14 of them in their own primary, because the governor, which we had never seen a governor go after his own Republican party members that were in an office, 14 of them lost because of that issue. And the governor had unlimited funds, and my colleagues couldn't compete. Right now, I'm kind of on the receiving end of that, knowing that my opponent is going to be well funded by the governor. If you follow, last week we had a campaign finance report deadline, which everybody has to submit at the state level. And we found out that there's all this Twitter, posts that you can see where the top 10 governor, where the governor, did campaign funding for those folks that are running. The number one guy was my opponent, where he funded the most money to. And then we have another faction of it's Texas ART. They funded $145,000 in one fell swoop for my opponent also. So we can't compete with the money. And what I tell people is they may have the money, but we have the people and we have that support, and hopefully that they can see that. But it's sad to see that because of just one issue on the private vouchers. That was a non-issue to when the legislative session started, and the governor just made it a pet project and his pet priority. But rural Texas and rural Republicans, including, I represent a big portion that's rural out there in West Texas, we didn't want private vouchers. They were going to take more money away from public schools to fund these private schools, and not on the same standards, not the same sort of certification. And so we didn't think that it was necessary. And we can go more, into it a little bit later with, public schools versus private vouchers. But it's sad to see that, because in general, and as soon as you see my Republican colleagues vote a certain way or work with Democrats, sometimes they'll get challenged too immediately. And they're threatened with being primaried. And that's a sad part, because the system is set up for there to be compromise, negotiation. You will away some of the things on the bill. Not every side gets exactly everything that they wanted, but it perfects hopefully the bill, and that's how it goes up. But more and more we're seeing that it's an all or nothing. And that's not, for those listening to us, that's not the way it should be. There needs to be compromise. There needs to be negotiation in the form of this legislation. And lastly, I want to say, I'm super proud to be endorsed also by TMA, which is the Texas Medical Association PAC, also at the entire state of Texas. they've done a phenomenal job, and I think that we need to continue to expand health services throughout the state of Texas, especially West Texas, and we can go into that as well, because there's so many voids there. And when you have, like, I think it's 6 out of the 11 counties that I represent have 1 or 0 physicians living in the community.
Wow.
Think what it does.
Oh, yeah,
and then lastly, Texas Real Estate PAC. I could not have kept that out without. I had to say that, because otherwise my sister, who's a realtor, also would have been really upset if I had not mentioned that. Tree PAC, Texas Real Estate PAC, has also endorsed this, and they're super. I mean, they're one of the between TMA and Tree PAC, they understand what folks like us that are running for office go through at the state level, and they really double down whenever they like someone and they see that they're doing the hard work. They really come through, not only by the fundraising, but then also helping us with some campaign mailers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was getting a ton of them. Like I feel like, God, do they know that I'm about to interview Eddie? Like, all of a sudden, mailers. I got a doorknob one today, and I was just like, okay, guys, like, yes, we're going to interview Eddie today. Don't worry, we got you.
So I really appreciate all those endorsements, and I know I'm missing some. So if you go to Morales for Texas on our social media, you can see all of the endorsements that we're very proud. And we have a banner that runs on our website at the bottom of all of the endorsements that we have.
Yeah, and we have the information scrolling right here. So if you guys want any more information on the state representative and everything he has to offer, moralesfortexas.com. Visit all of his social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, X, right? We got X or Twitter. And yeah, if you want more information, there you go.
I can't forget tomorrow, Raymond, I'm meeting with the Texas Farm Bureau members in this area. They have also endorsed us, and we're meeting tomorrow to have a quick visit and just chit chat. I have a 100% voting record under their criteria for the Texas Farm Bureaus. So for those farmers out there in Quemado and the outskirts of Eagle Pass and Del Rio, Valverde, and out in West Texas, I hope you know that I have a 100% voting record, and the Texas Farm Bureau also has endorsed our campaign.
All right. So we got all throughout we got through all of the accomplishments. We got the endorsements. We got a little brief background on your bio, all the accomplishments that you've done. So now it's time for I like to call it the meat and potatoes, or like they say here, the carnita or the pico de gallo. You know what I mean? Or the menudo, the menudo, the chicharrones from Piedras Negras Tortilla Factory. So we have here is the bowl of controversy. This idea was one from one of our production team. And what we're going to do is we're going to fish out these cards. These are based off of nomoremorales.com. So we kind of did some research. We looked at a lot of the legislation from the capital.texas.gov. So if you guys want to look up Representative Morales's voting record, there it is. It's all there. And if you guys want to catch everything that's been said in legislative session, it's all there in record. So this is going by. Actually, you know what? I want to kind of put that up on the screen here. Man, this is some. It kind of looks like you helped them out here. Like, look at all those.
Man, that was me. Are the people, the viewers, also able to see?
Yeah,
that?
they can see that. So we're sharing the screen right here.
I want to say that they made my cheeks look a lot bigger, like if I had them, but no, that was actually me after COVID. That was me at probably 225 to 220, 230 pounds, right around there.
And then Helen whipped you right back into shape.
I'm down to 185. So yeah.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, a lot of stuff here that we're going to go over, just on flashcards, and it's pretty much giving you a chance to kind of, explain, there's a lot of stuff that's kind of attacking you on. So we just want to give you a chance to go southpaw here and just kind of, combat the propaganda, as if you will.
Got it.
Wait, why don't you have a website like this? Like, what would I think you would call it? What, Give Up on Garza or something?
We've since we've started running the primary, there was back in 2020, there was a total of 5 candidates running, and we always wanted to run a positive campaign. I truly think, and I hope the viewership, I think we're tired of just people just throwing dirt at each other. And if you really want this seat, it's like, focus on your vision, focus on your ideas, focus on what you want to do for your community, for your region, and for your district, rather than just, complaining or, putting up these sorts of websites. And that's what we've always tried to do. Just focus on the vision. And a lot of these ideas also come from constituents and friends and family, and just regular folks out there that say, hey, what about this? And it's like, you know what? It's a good idea. Let me take it back to the Ledge Council and see if they can draft some legislation from local elected officials. They send us their legislative priorities so that we can represent the best interests in their communities. So we've always focused on that, and hopefully people will see that.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit salty because I actually wanted Helen to come on the podcast, and stuff like that. Putting someone's wife there on a propaganda thing.
Is that what they did? I haven't. I don't waste time. I've seen. She showed it to me briefly. I saw some of the stuff. And it's like,
that's her in the background. I mean, if you're gonna put someone's wife in the background, man, I don't give a damn what.
They probably wanted more clickbait.
Yeah, I don't give a damn what party you're with. You don't attack somebody's wife, man, or you don't put anybody's family in. That's not cool with me. So. But I'm a bit salty because then I asked her, come on, I want you to come on. And I had already put the banner on, and she's like, no, I'm not gonna be on there. We need to focus on Eddie. This is, I don't want to be open for attacks. And I was like, damn it.
Well, you ended up getting what do they call it? The alternative, man.
Yeah.
It went a notch down.
Yeah. Maybe, that would have been interesting. But maybe next time on another podcast after all this election shenanigans.
I will warn you, man. People, she's está calladita, but man, she's got some great ideas, and I think she can run all of us around the table, man.
Well, there's nothing more of a blessing than having your wife or your family members, especially if your wife that's supporting you and stuff. That's a big highlight. It's like that's your pillar of support. You know what I mean?
And for those that I'm hoping that all of you all have seen just how hard we've been working since 2020. And for those that she drives me. She will help with drafts on some speeches. We'll review them also and ask me to change some stuff, or what do you think about this? She'll prepare. I mean, it's invaluable, the resources that she brings. And I hope that you understand, when you vote for me, you technically are getting two for the price of one, in that sense, is that you really have a team set up. And then our team that is behind that also, with our field director, Sonia Moreno. She does phenomenal work here in Eagle Pass, Del Rio, and Brackettville. And then we have Gracie out there in El Paso also on the other end that does phenomenal work. We have our chief of staff, Caden and Ray, also in Austin. I mean, they are amazing at what they do. And it's beautiful to see. And hopefully people recognize that we are doing some great work for you all, and that they can see. I have to also say, I couldn't have done this if my kids were younger and still in school, because you've seen how much we travel.
Yeah.
There's no way that we could do this. And so that helps a lot. And then having a family support network like my dad and my mom that can help also at the tortilla factory, my sister that can also go around and run all these errands, my nieces also that will come out and help, my brother-in-law that's supportive also with law enforcement, my daughters and my son also, that even though they may be busy and in San Antonio or San Marcos and finishing school, like he's in his third year of law school, my youngest, it's all a core team effort. And then our family and friends also. It's our extended family and friends. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I have my wife. Thank you to my wife who supports me on this. And I mean, she couldn't make it today, but she's helping with my kid and stuff. And man, she's like a pit bull too when it comes to, especially when a woman is standing up for your man, and then they Helen puts up with hoodlums like me, going up and putting my Trump shenanigans on there. You know what I mean? So it's great. It's great to have that pillar of support. Let's take a quick break and let's look at some comments. We got some comments here. Clay, you have some highlight comments on there? What do you got? Put them up there and I'll read it.
Let's see. We got a lot of love.
Christina Jimenez, all of my support for State Representative Eddie Morales Jr. They can sit right here.
Oh, good. Great. Yeah, Christina's from Del Rio. She's one of our volunteer workers, and she was just doing some phenomenal work that we had to bring her into the fold. She's block walking. She's out there on the tent in Del Rio. She's been getting a lot of good response from our people down there.
Awesome. And we got Mr. Ishmael Castillo Alejandro here. Saludos, Eddie and Ruben. Hey, saludos, man. Thanks for
Thanks for tuning in.
Smiley went to high school with
Yeah.
me, man. There's keep the story. No, don't share any stories about high school, Smiley.
Uh-oh. Looks like he's the next one on the podcast. I got you, man. All right, on. All right. Brandy Villarreal says, you got my vote. Right.
Well, thank you.
Right.
Ms. Brandy. Yes, I know Ms. Brandy too. Wow. Yeah.
Blanca Lilia Garza Marquez says Valverde County with Eddie Morales.
Nice.
All right.
You know, we've lost Valverde County, but very little the last two times that we've run. I'm really looking forward. And I understand that my opponent is from Del Rio also. So I know that mountain that I need to climb for this cycle that we're on the campaign trail is even tougher. But I hope that people can see the difference. There was 2 meet and greet events only in Del Rio and Valverde that were held for this campaign season. Both events, my opponent did not show up. I was there, and Helen was there also along with us, and we were there and gave our face and had to answer some sometimes difficult questions from the audience members. And so hopefully that they see that if an individual that is wanting this office will not even show up in his own community, you know, which is probably 10, 15 minutes away, when he needs your vote to actually get into office, what does that tell you once he is in office? Is he going to show up even less at these events, or as he did, you know, not showing up at all? And so hopefully people will notice and see that stark difference, that we were willing to make that 1 hour drive up there, visit with constituents, stay there until it was over. You know, at the last one, the border organization, we were there till the very end because people needed and had questions. And then we started picking up chairs and helping the church organization also. And I think that's the way that you do things. You know, it's about, you know, a helping hand.
Yeah, the work speaks for itself. I kind of feel like as a Republican or as a conservative who supports Republicans, I really don't have any access to Republicans. I mean, I think I don't know who posted it. I think Mr. Garza was here, but he was at Denny's, and I'm like, well, shit, I didn't even get to meet him. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, I haven't saw any block walking, or I don't have any tons and thousands of mailers on my door from him.
Oh, you haven't gone? Well,
no.
man,
well, I mean, maybe I got one, but I didn't really get a door knock or anything like that. I think that's more important. Like, I want you to tell me why I shouldn't vote for this guy. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's the other thing, you know, I mean, their $1 million campaign against us is mostly focused on mailers. They're super expensive. When you have a universe of 50, 60,000 people that you want to reach out to, you're looking at a total cost of 5-6 mailers that have to go out in excess of 125,000, something like that. So it's a lot of money. TV, for example, or what they call OTT, over the top, is super expensive also. And that's the way that they run. But we know that the only way to actually win this is being there with the community, grassroots campaign, going out there, visiting those individuals, knocking on doors, and people can see that, and because we're constantly doing it throughout the district.
Okay. Oh, we have 2 questions. All right. Let's do it. Is that 2 questions?
Get to the questions.
Is that 2 of these questions? Okay. All right. Sorry. I don't want to get a shoe thrown at me. Shit. All right. Let's do this. All right. So let's do this. So I already picked, got one. I picked it randomly. These aren't scripted or anything. So that's why we have them in a bowl. All right. This is going to be on border security. This is going to be on Senate Bill 3. All right. And so these are all based off of your opponent's website here. So we're just going to ask you questions and then have you just kind of give us an insight on it and, like, you know, why, give us the answers why.
Okay.
All right. So what is your stance on border security and its significance for Texas?
Was it?
Well, we're going to ask you that, and then we're going to go through some bullet points.
So for those that know, and I've already mentioned, the last 2 legislative sessions, I was the only Democrat that joint authored, which was being a main author of that legislation of Operation Lone Star. You can be a joint author or a co-author. Co-author is like you support it, but you're not really one of the main proponents. Joint author is being up there. And so I knew, and this is the reason why. When I went out there to the community and the local elected officials, they were telling us that was the most important thing. Remember, the migrant surge, there was a lot of expenditures that all these governments were going through, and that's what we needed to do. We got $5 billion. We needed to help ranchers, landowners that kept getting their land, trespassed and their fences cut, and that's what Operation Lone Star did. And it also brought funding for local law enforcement agencies. And so we knew that they needed those resources so that we could continue to protect and secure our border. And that's why I supported Operation Lone Star.
Okay. And I know your opponent here, so this is where we're going to get controversial here. So your opponent here said that you voted no, standing in the way of efforts to protect our homes, families, and community from growing threats. So why did you vote no on that bill?
So I think what he's mentioning under SB 3, it was one of the special sessions where J.C. Jaton was actually proposing $1.5 billion for a border fence. And my position has been, unless it's very hard to reach places where law enforcement can't get there, that maybe you need, a border fence there. We really need to advocate for more funding for actual troops, boots on the ground sort of stuff that can manage. And what better way than be able to get that funding there so that then we can actually have everyone benefits if we have more, actual law enforcement officials with boots on the grounds, rather than bringing in troopers and displacing them from their communities in East Texas and in North Texas. If we actually hired local folks who would know the community and know the river better, I think that would work much better than just having a wall. And it's that common deal of like, build me a 15-foot wall and I'll find you somebody that'll be selling a 16-foot ladder, to get through it. And that's why I think that at one time, the statewide leadership used to, which is Republican from the top down, and both houses, the Senate and the House in Austin, they're run by Republicans because they have the majority. They used to be fiscally conservative and fiscally responsible. If you remember the Reagan and the Bush years. And now it just seems that they just want to throw money at this because it's more of a propaganda and a political theater at it. And the governor making sure that he actually then, finds a way to give some of these pet projects like a temporary tent for $43 million and prop it up for a while. And then it's going to eventually end up, getting, toppled down and gone whenever we end up, finishing this mess. And the numbers have substantially dropped. I would much have rather to have those 43 million to go into fixing our colonias, to go into our infrastructure, to go and remove all the old lead pipes that are still in downtown and all of these communities, to make sure that we're expanding all of the infrastructure that we need: roadways, water lines, sewer lines, building a university. I can't get $10 million to expand our 4-year university on top of the 30 million that we were able to receive. I can't get that, but then they were able to find $1.5 billion. And that's one of the reasons why I voted against it, is because I think it was a bad fiscal policy, a bad use of our Texas taxpayers' funds, and that we could put it to better use through other means.
So it's not just about blocking the governor, it's about finding a better solution.
That's it. And then being fiscally responsible. We have to answer. I support these last two sessions. I supported Operation Lone Star. We appropriated, like I said, almost $5 billion each time. But we just can't keep throwing money away. And we have to answer to Texas taxpayers. What are we going to do? We just can't keep throwing money away. We got to find better ways of resolving this. And that's why I didn't want to be the border guy. And then eventually I said, everyone's talking all this nonsense. Let me come up with common sense solutions. That's why we developed the Texas Migrant and Jobs Processing Plan that actually addressed this issue and says, look, we've created $1 billion industry for the bad guys, the human smugglers and the cartels. They're charging anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000 for these migrants to cross. It's $1 billion industry by our very own actions at the state and federal level. If I could take that element away from them and shift it over where Texas was then charging, when the mayor of Piedras did an audit when 2020, before COVID, when he retrofitted a maquiladora, put everybody in there and audited all the migrants, he found out that all of them had $2,000 to $5,000 in their pockets, because that's what it takes back then to pay a cartel, a human smuggler, to get you across. If the state of Texas were to charge on the low end that $2,000 fee, we were having at one time 8,000 crossings. That would be $16 million a day that we would be making, and over $5 billion that we would make in a year. In 2.5 years, our Texas taxpayers under that plan would be able to get reimbursed the money that the governor has spent under Operation Lone Star. I think that's thinking outside the box. I think that's making sure that we're representing the best interests of each and every one of you that is paying taxes. And it also would put conditions in place like, okay, if you cross, you're going to be assessed a penalty and you're going to have renewal fees. Second, you are the condition of a migrant that has to be gainfully employed to remain and to continue to reside in Texas. Because one of the concerns that the Republicans I kept hearing, right, was that, oh, they're coming and they're facing no repercussions. And also they're coming and taking, all these government and state resources. Okay, well, what if we assess the fine or a penalty, whatever you want to call it? And then what if we also put conditions like they have to be gainfully employed and they cannot, 99% of the federal benefits, they cannot qualify unless they're emergency services, like if they cut themselves or break a leg,
Right.
they have to go over there to the hospital and they're mandated to treat them and stabilize them. But we could do with that money is then say, okay, you have to be gainfully employed and be paying into the system, migrant, not taking from the system. We would also impose conditions like they couldn't get anything above a Class C misdemeanor, so that then if they were 95, 98% of them just want a better life. And they're going to be following all the laws. But for those bad guys, we need to have a way that we can get them out of the state. And I think that condition would do that. And then we would also have a Texas ID card, clearly distinguishable. We could make it purple in color as opposed to your ID or my driver's license or vice versa. We'd put a chip ID in the back, very similar to a credit card also, so that it'd be harder to forge. And we would also be able to assess that renewal fee every year, because we'd be able to deduct it from there.
Okay.
And so I think those ways of thinking outside the box would be able to solve a lot of these issues. And more importantly, we have less than a 4% unemployment rate in the state of Texas. There's 800,000 jobs, if you go and look right now on the Texas website, that remained unfilled in the state of Texas. We have a need for these. And everywhere I've gone, even in bastions or in these counties that are deep red Republican, when we go to these border panels that I'm invited to and we have these sorts of discussions on the border, I will meet countless of farmers, small business owners, contractors that say, I need these people. But I don't want to get in trouble if I hire them.
Right.
So we got to find a way to be able to continue to have this economic growth that Texas and the nation is experiencing by having the manpower that is necessary. But at the same time, doing it in a way where we would also do a background check as part of assessing and giving them that, clearly distinguishable ID. We would also have to do a worldwide identification background check to make sure that we're just bringing in people that should have a second chance of having a better life.
I'm gonna before we go to the next question, I'm gonna go off script here. What was your thought process when the surge happened and we had thousands of migrants under those bridges? Like, what was your
I was there.
We saw you there. I mean, even Helen was there. There's some politicians that I thought should have been there that weren't. What was your personal thought process when you saw all that?
This is what upsets me the most. We have all these congressmen from Washington, D.C. come over and they get up there on the riverbank, or they get on the boat and they take the photo and look really tough on the border. And then they go back and do absolutely nothing to continue the wasteful spending when we could find a solution. It's a two-step solution. We need to pass border security first and make sure that we secure our border. Senator Lankford's bill in January was phenomenal. Every one of the issues that former President Trump wanted when he was in office was included in that piece of legislation. It was okay when Trump was in office, but he wasn't able to get that passed. But when Senator Lankford negotiated that with the White House, now it was not a good thing. And we all know that the former President Trump tanked it by calling the speaker and telling him not to have a vote on it. And then the Republicans wanted it tied to the foreign aid bill also. And then they used that as the excuse to not want to pass it. And eventually they separated the two issues. The foreign aid bill still passed with bipartisan support, which means Republicans and Democrats passed it. And then we had that border bill by itself, and it still didn't get a vote. So that's what upsets me. And I think that people, need to be able to go back and find these solutions. Once we secure a border, then the next step, and if you visit with any immigration attorney, they will tell you we have needed immigration reform policies for the last 30, 40 years. So we need to up those farm worker visas, those high IT type visas, all sorts of worker visas. We need to, the bracero type visas also. We need to up the number and make sure that we are addressing the realities that we're seeing, that we need more people to come to work over here, but do it in an orderly fashion.
Okay.
I did not appreciate, and I have been a big time critique at times when Biden was first in office, and calling them out and saying you're not doing enough. And I have letters that you can again see. These have gone on our social media pages where I have been critical of the White House and how they initially addressed this issue. You know, a lot of the folks were, it's like, well, he should have just kept the Remain in Mexico. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that unless Mexico accepted that Remain in Mexico policy, we could not have it in place. And the president of Mexico said no. So then that meant that we could not do the Remain in Mexico deal.
Okay.
So those are the issues that people don't understand. The realities, it causes some problems for us. And I think you need to see the whole picture. We were having 10, 12,000 people a day. It's unsustainable. And back then. And that's why I love the fact that in early January, the president in the White House and Blinken and Mayorkas down to the president of Mexico, and they were able to negotiate some sort of agreement. And immediately within 2 days, we saw a drop on the migrants that weren't being allowed to get onto the Mexican side of the riverbank to then cross the river. They were being put on buses and being put on planes and returned back to their place of original, the original countries. And I think that showed that throughout, with cooperation, you could actually, have a solution. But we need legislation, and that needs to happen. And unfortunately, immigration is not a state issue. We're very limited in what we can do. So it really should take Congress, and Congress has failed us for 30 or 40 years. Congress has failed every one of us, Texans and Americans, by failing to address this and effectively fix it. And we're spending billions of dollars in federal monies and in state monies when they don't do that.
It's a lot of information to take in, a lot of it. So, I mean, everybody can do their research. Definitely look into it, especially when it comes to legislation. We got to move on to the next question here. So this one's a little bit more of a, this is a pretty good subject here. All right. So this is going to be based off of House Bill number 25. And I think it also incorporates with, or it gets in sync with Senate Bill 14, which is medical care for kids with gender dysphoria. Okay. So the question is, why did you go against, well, let's talk about what it is. So what is gender dysphoria? It's pretty much what, when I think it's like a mental illness when that even some young youth go through. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's when kids kind of think that they're in, or even adults who think they're in a woman's body, or if they think they're in a man's body. I think
that their gender doesn't, what mentally how they feel, who they should be from a gender version, and actually
right.
Outwardly and in their body physically who
right.
What they physically who they are.
So Senate Bill 14 is I had it written. Oh, okay. So what it does is it bans it technically bans medical personnel from conducting procedures on youth for gender dysphoria. Why did you vote no on that one?
So first, the previous session, there was a similar bill that wouldn't have allowed college, and I think that's the other bill also.
Oh, okay. 25, yeah.
Yeah.
Bill 25.
Which
okay.
wouldn't allow,
it's not going to allow men playing in women's sports.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I voted in favor of that bill because I at that level and the data that we received, and in college sports, and your bodies have already more physically, the muscle, all of that has actually, you could end up hurting someone. So right. I could totally see that, and that's why I supported. And the data was there, and it actually had bipartisan support. Democrats and Republicans supported that legislation. When it came to this, it was more really, I personally believe that I don't think a child should go through any sort of this surgical procedure before the age of 18. I think you're still not mature enough. Your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed to make an informed decision over that.
Right.
But at the same time, when you have gender dysphoria, and I invite anyone. We just recently, Helen and I, when you ask, what do you do on your downtime? We try to watch some Netflix and just try to forget about the outside world so that we can have some downtime. We saw, and I had to write this down, El Secreto del Rio, The Secret of the River on Netflix. And I invite everyone to see it because it's a small miniseries, but I really think it shows what these people go through. And I think that you're humans after all, and then we need to recognize that. And so while I don't believe that a child should go through that, I strongly believe that we should support parents and the parents' rights to be able to make those assessments, because nobody knows what that parent and that child are going through except them in their own home, and how it's been so difficult. And when you hear the data that these kids that have been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, 40% of them commit suicide. One of those kids committing suicide, if we're not really out there trying to do our best as a society, as a state, and to try to preserve that life, and if we claim to be, especially conservatives who want to wear that mantle of being pro-life, then why are you not going to advocate and support and have programs in place where you have, the ability of having psychological treatment, having social workers talk to them, not only to the kids, but also to the parents, and actually guide them through that process, be able to have, the ability to have medication maybe in place. And so those were the things that I focused on. I said, it's the conservatives also like to talk a lot about parental rights, but yet when it came to this, they were completely willing to take that completely away and say the state knows better what to do rather than the parent and the child.
Would you say that this was like Republicans in Congress, like kind of backing you guys into a corner? Like,
I truly felt like that because, and it's not Congress, right? It's the House of Representatives. So let's make clear, the House, and the legislature in Texas. Yeah. And I get a lot where people will go, hey, Congressman, and make it a nice way of saying, well, I'm the state representative. I don't go to DC.
I got it mixed up.
But it really, it affects 0.002 of the college kids, I think, that were going percent. It was such a small number, let's say, on the first bill that we were talking about.
Right.
But I thought that it was important. I could understand and have bipartisan. Here, when we passed that legislation, actually, I think the data shows that we had 0 kids actually that had been affected by the time that we passed that legislation. Okay. And so that shows that it wasn't really a non-issue. And again, it goes back to these culture wars that these people just want to have us in these culture wars so that we can be at each other's throats and be fighting about who's going to what restroom and who's playing what game, and rather than really focusing on what is important, the meat and potatoes type of issues, right. Economic growth. How are you going to deliver good transmission and power lines and electricity so that we don't have the same issues that we had during Winter Storm Uri? Well, what are your thoughts on public, fully funding public schools and really paying teachers what they should deserve? Those are the meat and potatoes type of issues. But, fostering and helping small businesses, that sort of stuff, making sure that our law enforcement have all of the protections and all of the equipment and are well funded and well paid as well. And rather they make these culture wars to just keep us, fighting amongst ourselves.
Right. It's not easy, obviously. I mean, I think it's a blessing to have, especially someone locally, like who's part of the House of Representatives, that can kind of teach us this kind of stuff and like what it's like to be having to work up in whether it's DC or in Austin to be fighting amongst each other. Well, not fighting, but like you're fighting for your beliefs, and you're fighting for people, or you're representing those who are voting for you, your voters, to try to pass this legislation. And sometimes you get backed into a corner. There's a lot of and we see it. I mean, those who don't see it, I think they need to do more research, but we see that there's a lot of political strategies on both ends that try to back each other in a corner. Like, like we just talked about. Sometimes if they like for example, a government shutdown, who's going to make the first move? Like, if you don't vote for this, then I guess the government's going to shut down. What's it going to be?
Yeah. And again, it goes, I think we're in a place where, especially when you're talking about government shutdown at the federal level, we're at a place where they want to make the federal government looked dysfunctional. There's certain
Right.
extreme folks that are in power right now that are in elected office that want to make like the federal government is dysfunctional, it's not really working for the people, let's just close it down. But then it's sometimes the federal government has been the only life-saving tool there between the people and the government and their ideas. Right. In the 60s and 70s, we saw that through the civil rights movement, through the integration of having African Americans be able to go into regular schools. I mean, you saw this, and it was the federal government that actually stepped in.
Oh, wow.
And saved it at the state level. Because if we had left it up to the states, it would have been a mockery of who we truly can be and what our founding fathers, I really truly believed, could be the United States of America.
Well, thank you for this experience, man. I think I've underestimated how long this was going to go. We're already at an hour.
We're at an hour?
Yeah,
oh my
we're at
God.
an hour, and like I know Helen was like, "Hey, he's a talker." So we didn't get to get all the questions, but you know what? I mean, you could always contact your state rep and ask them these questions. And I think we can leave this for a part 2 one of these days. And it was, we got through some really important subjects. You explained it really well. Like I said, despite our beliefs, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you got to do your research, and especially you got to kind of be more understanding of why these figures make these decisions. Sometimes it's not going to go your way. Doesn't mean that they're evil people. They just don't want to see it that way. We had a conversation with Olga the other day. Sometimes these decisions are hard makers. You got to balance it out, and sometimes there's political strategies where, okay, let's get the Democrats in a corner, or let's get the Republicans in a corner. It's political bickering at its best. But you know what? I think we're truly blessed to have somebody who's local, and good luck to you, and hopefully you can stay in office and continue to educate us more. We would definitely like a representative that's local, that lives right here, that can teach us more about that stuff. Like, who better to hear it from? Last question before we cut it off. So as a state representative, what's your vision for the future going forward if you win?
Whew. We've got some projects underway, as you know, the 4U University. We've got to finish that out. We're in our final stages. Actually, we're having to sit down there in the tent to finalize that. I think we can get it before the end of the year. So it's Texas State University 4-year system. We got $5 million for 2 great projects from Southwest Texas Junior College. They took away the junior now they're just Southwest College. And so they're going to make improvements on vocational and trade opportunities in Del Rio, about $2.5 million, and another $2.5 million here also in Eagle Pass. We have the Loop 480, the third and final stage that needs to be built. Also, we've got the funding for that. Highway 57, also a 4-lane divided highway, 10 years, $550 million. That's phenomenal. And then I want to be able to focus on, making sure that we're bringing like a regional law enforcement academy here. We're 7 hours away from El Paso or from Brownsville, either Eagle Pass or Del Rio. In partnership with the Texas State University system, which we would fall under that umbrella, the 4U University. They already have a great program there in San Marcos and their flagship university. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just duplicate that program. And then also Laughlin Air Force Base being so close, I know that veterans, for example, they would really love, instead of having to travel 2.5 hours for a 10-minute sometimes clinic visit, right, if we could expand and work with the federal governments, as there's federal monies that come to the state, and then we determine what bases end up getting it. And so we were able to garner $2.5 million for Laughlin Air Force Base this last legislative cycle. But if we were to specifically focus on expanding the clinic that is there and offering more services for these veterans, that way they wouldn't have to travel like you all.
Yeah,
I think that would be a game changer also. So those are the things. That desalination plant, we all know that we're running out of water. It's been clearly evident, especially out there in West Texas. So having a desalination plant for Corpus that would go from that highway, I think it's I-37, and then tie it from San Antonio, I-10, all the way to El Paso, a pipeline using the right-of-way, for example. Again, thinking outside the box. If Israel can do it, and like a city of El Paso has a desalination plant, we could really refocus our efforts. And then think about it. It's almost like cutting across that pipeline from Corpus all the way to El Paso. It's kind of cutting the north and south. And so everyone would be able then to tap in from the north and the south and receiving, that precious water source.
Oh, wow.
I think those things I'm looking forward to working with. And then again, just making sure also I continuously ask all local elected officials through their government bodies to send us their legislative priorities so that then we can make sure that we submit them in the form of a bill, and then we can push that legislation. If you like what we've done the last 4 years, I humbly ask for you to come out and vote, make a plan, make sure that you don't go out by yourself. You multiply that vote by just taking somebody else, and really consider focusing on voting for Eddie Morales for state representative and reelecting us into office.
You got your work cut out for you.
Thank you.
So, I mean, well, good luck to you on your campaign. And this was exciting. Thank you so much for, allowing us to come in and interview you. As my first experience, especially interviewing somebody at the state level, like, damn, it's an hour already. So I mean, we really didn't get to get all the content, but like I said, I'm sure there'll be a part 2.
I hope we can do it.
I enjoyed it. Live in the part 2, and tell everybody where to go vote tomorrow.
So here in Eagle Pass, it's at the Multipurpose. It's from 8 to 5. And then Saturday, we're going to have 7 to 7 also at the Multipurpose. And there's even going to be Sunday. I think the hours are from 9 to 3. And so, yeah, I got it right. And then also in Del Rio at the Civic Center, they're also going to have it all week from 8 to 5. And I think they're going to have a Saturday also voting. So, and then you can find other places out in West Texas. If you're listening to us, you can go to the elections website and figure out, what time.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was an awesome experience. Thanks to my production team. And of course, thanks Helen for putting this together. Thank you to my wife for the advisory and all the help that we try to do to achieve this. We want to get a platform out there for everybody, whether you're Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter. We all want to come together and be able to tell your story and, of course, tell the facts. All right. So again, guys, don't forget to go out and get your asses out there to vote. We exercise that right. And we'll see you guys at the Multipurpose Center. So remember, guys, if you don't know about Texas State Legislature, right here with our representative, now you know Eagle Pass. Stay cool, stay strong, rock on. We'll see you guys later. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.